Aldo Guajardo. Welcome to Pure Apocalypse. I will be your host. You're in here for the meeting of Beyond the Walls, Agents and Change. And our guest speaker will be Jose Castillo and Danielle Wilson. Jose has acquaintances that will be joining him. And I'm going to read a couple of quick statements for disclosures. We have a recording disclosure. Please note that we are recording this workshop. If you would rather be incognito, please turn off your camera and change your name or remove your name. We are not recording content from the breakout sessions. There's a conference comfort agreement. We ask participants to please honor the conference comfort agreements found on page 6 of your conference program. And peer support for peer support specialists. If at any time you need peer support, please visit www.peerapocalypse.com for a list of on-call peer support specialists or the David Rompey, Oregon Warm Line. Question and comments, we ask participants to keep themselves on mute. If you have questions or comments for the presenter, please use the Q&A or chat box. He's also said that you can also ask him questions during the presentation. And I will turn it over to Jose to introduce himself and start the workshop.
Thank you, Romaldo. If you could get the PowerPoint up, that would be great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jose Castillo. Yeah, I'm going to stand up. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but I'm going to go ahead and stand up.
Yes, we can.
My name is Jose Castillo. I am one of the presenters. Along with me is going to be, to my right here is Brian Wilson. Brian Strum. Brian Strum.
I'm changing.
Yeah, I'm changing people's names. Brian Strum with Arizona Department of Corrections. Go ahead.
Yeah. Danielle. And my name is Danielle Wilson. I'm also with Arizona Complete Health, and I will be co-presenting today. And I will also be manning the chat. So if you have questions, go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll address them as quickly as we can.
And I'm Holly Escudero, and I'm also with the Department of Corrections.
Awesome. So what we're going to talk about is a program that's near and dear to us. It's called, we named it Inside. So that stands for Individuals Navigating Support in Detention Environments. And can you go to the next slide, please? Welcome to everybody. Next slide. All right. So when we talk about recovery, right, one of the big requirements that we have for ourselves and for our program is that folks come with a lived recovery experience. So I don't know about you all, but me, myself personally, I grew up being incarcerated, started off young in juvenile hall and went to county jail and eventually ended up in prison. I spent a lot of time in prison. I also spent some time, hospitalized. So I don't know what that looks like for you guys, but for me, I ended up in an inpatient facility. And after years and years of being incarcerated, doing that cycle in and out, I had a breakdown and I ended up being hospitalized, and it threw a different look at me for recovery. It's very difficult to do. Okay.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to speak up a little bit more then. I hope that's better. So recovery started looking different for me. I had already had experiences with like 12-step programs and whatnot. And when I was hospitalized, I learned that I had a lot of other underlying situations going on with me, and I got to start all over and learn a little bit more about myself. So just a little bit, I went through that cycle. I was in and out. Today, things are a little bit different. Part of what I do today is I've taken and I've reinvented myself. I landed here in Arizona back in 2009 after recently I had been incarcerated. I had gotten out, and then I did that geographical move that people talk about. So when I got here to Arizona, I did not know anything about peer support. And what ended up happening was I got some help at this what was called the peer run organization. And I was introduced to peer support. So I took a training, and lo and behold, I got a job as a peer support, and I started working in the behavioral health field. I'm gonna fast forward real quick, just so you guys, I wanted to give you that background just so you have a little idea of where I come from. So since 2009 on, I have worked in behavioral health as a peer support, and then I moved on as a trainer and a coordinator, and today I work for what's known as a managed care organization. So I basically work for a health plan, which is pretty cool. Had you asked me back in 2009 if I would have envisioned myself being where I'm at today, you know, I get to work in a big corporate building. I get to be involved in a lot of cool stuff and cool programs. And henceforth, this is one of the programs that we were able to kick off and get started. And we're really excited that we get to share this with you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Danielle.
Hello, my name is Danielle Wilson. I am a family member and a peer. I've received services both as an adolescent and as an adult. And I've had the wonderful experience of being incarcerated and having that be part of my story. We are very excited about presenting this and being a part of this program today. We've gotten to see it grow, and I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Schrum.
Can we hit the next slide, please?
Okay, so my name is Brian Schrum. I am the Recovery Support Specialist Program Manager for Department of Corrections. You see the photo on the left is actually my Arizona released offender ID. So I had a 8-year battle with methamphetamine addiction, which culminated in me becoming a resident for Department of Corrections. I feel I was fortunate enough to only at the time get sentenced to 1.5 years. And that was my aha moment, my turning point. After I got out of prison, I kind of went back to old careers that I had while I worked my way through school. I got my bachelor's degree in psychology and my master's degree in addiction counseling. Worked my way up as a peer support for a local agency here in Arizona called Community Bridges. And then I worked my way up to be moved on to, it's called a parent aid, working with families that had been separated by Department of Child Services. And then I worked as a SMI case manager for a local company called La Frontera. And then ultimately, after I got my counseling, or my master's in addiction counseling and became a licensed counselor, I started with Arizona Department of Corrections, which for anybody that doesn't know, people with a felony background that have been in prison working for Department of Corrections 5 years ago was unheard of. So it was a shift within our Department of Corrections to bring someone with my background in. And ultimately, this program came about, and we'll cover the backstory of it here shortly. But now I am, as I said, the Recovery Support Specialist Program Manager, and Ms. Escudero here is our new Recovery Support Specialist Program Coordinator. So the program evolved from us, or the counselors running peer support on the side, to having my position created, and now within 2 years of the program going, they've created 3 positions underneath me. So it's took off like a wildfire since we've been here, and I'll let Holly talk a little bit about herself now.
So just a little quick story about me. I moved to New Mexico from the state of Florida and wound up getting into some trouble there. Wound up spending 8 years of my life incarcerated at the New Mexico Women's Correctional Facility. While I was there, I actually got certified as a peer support. And so my time there, while I was there, I did facilitating of classes, groups with my peers. When I was released in 2014, I moved to the state of Arizona, and that's where I met Danielle and Jose, and actually Brian, because we were having trouble finding my credentials from New Mexico. So I just went and redid everything here in Arizona. I started working for 2 different local agencies here in Arizona as a peer support, and it's been about, 4.5 months now ago that I actually got the position with Arizona Department of Corrections after spending 8 years myself in corrections. And this is actually my second week, but my second day actually working. My first week was doing trainings.
So real quick, I'll answer the question if there are any African-American peers working for me. So across the state, I have a diverse group. We have men, women, we have sex offenders, we have people that are in for life, we have people that are in for a year. So we don't discriminate on any grounds. We wanted to make sure we were all inclusive of peers, and thus far we have made sure that we've included everybody from all walks of life. So
Next slide, please. So we're going to have a poll question. I'm going to let Romaldo launch that. We're going to do it for about a minute. So go ahead, and when he's going to bring it up, I want you guys to answer the question. Oh, he did both of them. Okay.
all right, so what percentage of individuals that have completed the peer wellness program have recidivated? And we're speaking specifically of inmates that have completed the program that our peers facilitate. How many have released and then came back?
What would you guys think? Yes.
All right, I guess it shows the second poll being answered as well as what percentage of DOC's prison population have an identified substance use disorder. So we can touch on both of those when we're done here.
Just let me know when you want to hit the poll.
Go ahead, Romaldo. Go ahead and close it. It was a little bit longer, but we're good.
All right, so it looks like 8% was the winning poll for percentage of individuals that have recidivated. To date, we have had 83 inmates released that have completed the wellness program, which is what our certified RSSs teach, and we have had 0 come back. It's a small sample size, but it shows a strong success so far, and we are really, really, really proud of it. And then the second poll question, if you can scroll down there. All right, so it says, what percentage of Arizona prison population have an identified substance use disorder? So when inmates come into Arizona Department of Corrections, they go through a variety of screening processes to rule or to identify different risk factors such as education, employment, substance use. So our most recent stat showed that 74% of inmates coming in have a substance use disorder. I say that I wanted to make sure we emphasized identified, because there are countless inmates that come in that say they don't have a substance use disorder. They're afraid of getting put into mandatory classes for substance use, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to sit through that. So it's 74% that are identified, but I would say just from my work within the prison system, the rate's probably closer to 90%.
Okay. To answer that question for Vanessa, yes, this program is only in Arizona.
Well, our version of it's only in Arizona. There are other states that have similar peer programs where they certify inmates. I know Wisconsin does, Pennsylvania does, New Mexico does, as that's where Holly got hers. From the conversations I've had with people in those states, our program is currently the largest one that I'm aware of, but we are working to identify other states and try to network as we are. And there's my contact information there. Anybody here can feel free to contact me via email. I'm kind of tied up this week, but next week I'll make a concerted effort to get back to anybody that reaches out to me.
Thank you. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what we did to help move this along, and what we did and how we prepared for setting up the landscape for all this. So one of the things that we did was, we wanted to empower the folks that we were going to go in there and train and work with. So we went in to the prison here in Tucson, Arizona. It's called the Tucson Complex, and we held focus groups. We held focus groups with peers that were already in there. These were men that were already doing the work. There was a small foundation there. These guys were already running groups. They were working on their recovery. They had lots of questions. We went in there and we met with several different prison yards and got a whole bunch of feedback on what they saw. Something that we saw early on with this group is with these initial focus groups, was we had folks that they really didn't feel like this program was going to happen. And part of the reasoning that is because they're in prison and they're really disempowered. We came back and we sat at the table and we wanted to really take a look at how we can empower them. So we gave them some dates. We let them know we were coming in to do some training, and we gave them some dates. And really, you guys, from when we first started talking to them, there was a lot of doubt that this was even going to be possible. They felt there was going to be a lot of barriers, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. But just to let you know, like we met with like 4 very large focus groups, on multiple level yards. So we didn't just do lower level. We went multiple level yards. Next slide, please. So a little bit about this. One of our initial things is we wanted to ensure that the people that were going to oversee the peer supports that we're going to train in the prison system, that they also had a lived recovery experience. So when we initially sat down with the Department of Corrections and their staff, which was the Arizona Department of Corrections their counselors, and we were hashing out and we were having this dialogue about what it would look like. And they wanted to put together this team. One of the things that we brought to the table was that we wanted to ensure that the people involved had a lived recovery experience. People don't get into substance abuse counseling or just counseling in general. A lot of folks come with that background. There's a reason that there's that motivator. And from when we did our research and talked to other groups that had attempted similar projects across the country, one of the things that we had heard happening was folks were being put to oversee, to supervise peers, but they didn't have that background. It was a CO3, it was some officer for the Department of Corrections, and there really we didn't really feel there was like that investment, that buy-in. So when we sat down with the Arizona Department of Corrections, that's one of the things we said, hey, you know what? we would really love to see everybody take this training so they have an idea of what it's going to look like for the folks that they're going to supervise. But we also want them, we want the ones that are going to identify, that are going to be willing to share their story and willing to say, hey, you know what, I have this in my background. We were very blessed. We got a big, robust group there of counselors. We threw in a couple other outliers just to mix it up for the counselors, and it was pretty fun. Next slide, please.
All right, so one of the things we knew we had to do of inmates that we were going to be working with was going to be able to set the example of being a peer on the yard. We didn't want to just give this training and certification to anybody, so we wanted to look in depth of people that exemplify recovery. So some of the steps we take is we first put out a job posting. We treat this as a legitimate job, like any of us would look on Indeed or jobbing.com. So we put the posting up with what the criteria is to be even interviewed for the program. So we list that they need to have a 1.5 years left on their sentence, because we want to make sure that the participants get comfortable with the peer they're working with, and they're not going to be changing out every 3 or 4 months. So to even become certified, they have to have a 1.5 years left on their sentence. Another criteria is they have to be disciplinary free for a 1.5 years. If they have discipline 2 weeks ago, they're obviously not, putting forth the best effort to be a positive role model. They have to have either their high school diploma or their GED. There are a lot of employers here in Arizona that to be a peer, they have to have the high school diploma or GED. So we wanted to mirror what was going on out there in the community. And then if they clear that initial background screening, then we pass on their information to what's called SSU, and that is basically the investigators within the Department of Corrections. So they delve into these inmates' files and make sure that there's no suspected, we'll say, maladaptive behaviors going on. We don't want people that are suspected of moving contraband around the yards, or maybe their, gang affiliation might become problematic or something like that. So if we get they clear the first hurdle, then they clear the background screening, and then we do an actual interview. So there is whatever unit we're going to, if there's a substance abuse counselor, the substance abuse counselor will be a participant in the interview process. Myself, Holly, now that she's on board, will be helping complete those interviews, but we also have a security staff member from that unit involved in interview as well. I'm not on those yards, so I don't know what these people are about. So having security there to give their feedback as well, make sure that we have a well-rounded view of this person. And then we do a scoring-based interview process. So depending on how they answer certain questions, they score a certain point. And that's how we decide. We might interview 30, but we're only going to select 10 for the training. So we look at how they answered the questions, how they scored, and have like an actual conversation, because this is a real job and this is something that we're taking very seriously. After all that's completed, then we have them review the job description, make sure that they are fully aware of what they're signing up for. Covering stuff such as mandated reporting, that they're going to be responsible for facilitating psychoeducational substance abuse classes. They're going to be doing one-on-ones. They're going to be doing relapse prevention planning. We just want to make sure that they have a grasp of what it is that they're signing up for, because I tell everybody at the training that I can do everything I can to make sure this program is a success, but it starts and ends with them. If they're not being about recovery, if they're not setting themselves to a higher standard, then it doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter what Holly does. It doesn't matter what Danielle and Jose help us with, if they're not doing everything that's expected of them and going above and beyond and setting that example, the program would fail. So next slide.
All right. So this was our, what I'll call our initial class. It was an inaugural class. As you can see, we had a diverse group of folks. We started off with 20 men. The majority of these men were already facilitating some form of group at the prison. They were doing work with, like smoking cessation classes or running 12-step meetings. And this group was hungry. They were hungry for knowledge, and they're still hungry. Hungry for knowledge. I was completely blown away when we did this initial training. At the back end of the training, we did a training of the trainer, and these men stepped up, and they were amazing. I left with goosebumps every day. One of the things that they had was they wanted to role model, and they wanted to ensure the success of this program, and you could feel it and hear it every day with their interactions. Something that folks don't know about this is that all these guys were from different yards. So if you're not familiar with the way Arizona's set up, is they have different level yards, but they also have what's called integrated yards. That's where folks have integrated, and then you have folks that are still on what would you call them? Non-integrated?
We call them political yards.
Yeah.
So the integrated housing program is anyone that's ever seen or been in prison. They're, whites house with whites, African Americans house with African Americans, Hispanics is housed with Hispanics. And that was a really big thing here in Arizona, and we're trying to steer away from that. So we created the integrated housing program where inmates sign that they are open to housing with other races, and we're trying to make it's not segregated, so to speak. So, and then the yards that don't sign up for that, they're still following the old kind of prison politics kind of separation. So the ones that integrate actually have other benefits that come to them. Extra visitation, extra food visits. They actually have Xboxes on those yards to kind of show them that, hey, look, if you try to break the stigmas that are here in the prison system, then you're going to be able to get extra stuff.
Right. So the big concern here was we brought in these guys from all these different yards. So some were already in the integrated program, and there were some that were still in what I'll call them, where there was still politics on the yard. So there was some concern by these guys, by some of these guys that were coming in from different yards, and what ended up happening was it was a beautiful class. It was a beautiful mix of people. By the end of the training, all those concerns were gone. What we got from them was that they were looking forward to being able to implement this, and they understood that how important this was going to be for them to role model peer recovery language and role model just what recovery looks like for them there in the prison system. Next slide, please. So our next training, we went to what's called the Perryville Complex. So this is the women's prison. So yes, I got to go to the women's prison. I was really excited. I've been to many prisons, but I had never been to a women's prison. So for me, I was excited about that, I guess. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and let Brian and Danielle touch a little bit about this because the experience was big. I just want to, what stuck out for me about this group is they were really poetic. There was a lot of empathy. It was an awesome class.
Yeah, so to answer Obadiah's question, yes, we have any crime you can think of, we have them working for us as peers in the institution. So anything from stolen cars, identity theft, drug offenses, to we have people that we have certified peers that are in for murder. One of our standouts at one of our facilities out in Buckeye, he is actually in for his part in killing of a corrections officer that was off duty in the community. So we don't look at their crimes. That's not what it's about. This is about recovery, and if they exemplify recovery, I don't care what they're in for. Like I said, we do have sex offenders, both male and female. We have those that have sex crimes against children. We have those with sex crimes against adults. And as long as they're willing to step up and be about recovery, I don't even care what they did in their past. I just care what they're trying to do for their future and what they're trying to do for the prison population. And the lifers that we have, they're resigned to the fact that they're gonna eventually die in prison, and they want to make where they're living their life out is the best possible environment for it. So we're on our minimum security men's and women's facilities. We're at medium security men's and women's facilities. We recently stepped up into the closed custody women's facilities. And then we are looking at how we're going to introduce this into the higher custody men's units as well. So it's one thing to certify the inmates as RSSs that have those crimes, but to then have them provide services to those with those crimes as well is going to be the next evolution of the program.
From the beginning, when we started doing the focus groups, we went to all the different yards, and we've had peers working on one yard, go to another yard, and even at the request of staff.
Yeah. So the video we're going to show at the end will touch on that too. So we were able to produce a video that covers this. So the women, we initially started, I think there was 20 in the initial training there at Perryville, and that was 2 units. And we have now expanded to, there is 8 women's units altogether. We are on 6 of them now. So the other 2 units will be falling here in short succession. The training plan, as you guys can know, we're here in this environment because COVID's kind of derailed a lot of plans, but we will be expanding there. So initially we did the Tucson complex and Perryville. We were on a total of 6 units. We are now at 9 complexes with 28 units. We've certified, we'll get on the next slide. Okay, I might be jumping ahead of myself.
Yes.
So you see, we started small. We wanted to see what would work and what the hiccups would be and what we needed to adapt the program as we move forward. And it's grown to where inmates are, like, I can't walk onto a yard without somebody asking how they get involved in the program. They want to be the next RSS. They want to be involved in the next training. And it's you know, I've said it already, it's spread like wildfire, and it's taken hold and changing the culture here.
Can we get to the next slide, Romalo? All right. So, we kind of got a little bit ahead of ourselves, I think, but we'll just tie it all in. So inside, what's in the program? There's a wellness recovery program that lasts 7 months?
Yeah, so the Wellness Recovery Program is the class that our certified RSSs teach. It's a 30-week psychoeducational substance abuse class. So they start with the motivational enhancement to get them engaged. And then we go over to Hazelden Books, Criminal and Addictive Thinking, Drug and Alcohol Education. And then we tie in SAMHSA's Whole Health Action Management. And we wrap it up with Hazelden's Relapse Prevention. And I think in the next iteration of the program, we're also going to include releasing in it the Hazelden Release and Reintegration. It might be a standalone class to make sure that everybody's prepared for what's coming. Our Second Chance Center is something that the department started a couple years back, and we have 3 locations across the state. There's one here in Tucson, there's one at our Buckeye prison, and then there's one at the Perryville Women's Complex. And what it is inmates can sign up to go to these locations, and then they have help creating a resume. They have help getting signed up for Access, which is our Medicaid here in the state. They are able to get job skills training. So they have plumbing, electrical, HVAC, commercial driving license. But we also moved some of our RSSs to those yards as well to run an 8-week substance abuse class, so that not only are they getting their release needs met, but we're also preparing them for what's going to come. Like they've been able to stay sober in prison. We want to make sure that they're able to stay sober when they get out. And if we refresh it in their minds before they walk out that gate, it's not going to be something like, oh, I'm never going to use again. But we sharpen that tool and then send them out on their way. DOC staff, we are working to train DOC-wide all the corrections officers, all the program administration, all the unit administration, all the complex administration on not only this program, but also to the our sex offender treatment and our substance abuse counselors. So if it's not on somebody or on an officer's yard, typically they don't know about it. So we want to make sure that everybody across the board has the same understanding to where if they're doing overtime somewhere, they know what's coming and what to expect. To know that we have these inmates that we've entrusted to run these programs, that we've entrusted them to be able to meet with somebody one-on-one. And that if somebody is in crisis, they can turn to these RSSs and call them in instead of, having to call a psych emergency, and next thing you know, the inmate's getting, put into an isolation cell when they really just needed somebody to listen to them. Right. So it's growing. We're forming relationships with our mental health and our physical health provider. So how would Oregon start this program? Find somebody within Oregon Department of Corrections and give them my email. We're not afraid to share this. Give them Danielle or Jose and Danielle's emails, and they'll be more than happy to have those conversations as well.
Something I want to add real quick on Department of Corrections staff is when we first started this, there was no RSS program manager. Ryan was working for under a different hat, and because of the inception of this program, we've actually seen some growth there. Brian's got a program manager position, as well as a position was created that Holly's taken. And Holly was actually in our initial training, which was pretty cool. But there are other positions. So something we're seeing as an outside entity of the prison system is we're seeing growth in the Department of Corrections because they've taken and created positions that are peer relevant, and they're not hiring. They hired from without. So what the Department of Corrections did is they put out there, hey, we're hiring RSS specialists, and they reached out to people like myself and other folks and said, hey, these positions are opening up, and other peers from within our community throughout the state have applied for those positions. I think that's pretty cool. That we have that opportunity to see growth, and that we're giving other peers the opportunity to go back in and work there. Because you know what? For somebody like me that had been incarcerated, I never thought I was going to be able to go in and be able to walk back out. And I've had the ability to do that several times. I've had the ability to walk into a prison on my own and walk out because I'm on that list and I'm cleared. And I jump on the bus and they take me to the yard. And the first time I went in there, I had goosebumps and I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to get out. But after that, I got a little bit more comfortable and I understood the process. I don't know about you guys, but like I had some my own personal experiences with the doors clinking and other stuff really sent me out there for a little bit. So it was an experience that I got to work through. Yeah. Okay. One-on-one engagement, that just basically talks about the beauty that these men and women have to be able to go from yard to yard, or to set up an appointment with somebody there in the facility and say, hey, I want to meet with my peer and work out whatever the situation is. And that's basically it. Can we go to the next slide, please? So something we initially talked about when we were setting this up was that we wanted there to be autonomy, sustainability. So part of what we did is we didn't want to go in there as Arizona Complete Health and being a peer training team. We didn't want to go in there and train and do a training for peer support. We wanted to go in there and train peers to be able to train themselves, you know, and that's something that we saw created. Like I shared with you guys, the guys from the Tucson complex, we did the training, and they themselves have trained other peers there at the Tucson complex facility. The other thing is they're working to create that new recovery environment. For those of us that have been incarcerated, you know how we, you know, it's an uphill battle. The culture in the prison system is different. There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of people don't believe like when people are doing good. And it's one of those things that we've gotten to see. These men and women are changing the culture in that community. I think Danielle put in the chat box, we visited one unit, and the Department of Corrections staff that was there was really excited and really happy that they had peers working there. They felt it was changing the environment. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about connection towards the end, so we're going to leave it at that. Just know that, you know, just like geese, man, you know, that power structure is shifted. So anybody at any time can move into that role, which is pretty cool. Next slide, please. Oh, we had a duplicate. Okay. Sorry about that. Next slide.
All right, so several years ago, our governor and our leadership at the time came up with a new department goal. They called it 25 in 10. So they wanted to reduce recidivism in Arizona Department of Corrections by 25% over a course of 10 years. I think we're 3 or 4 years into that. And before anyone asks, I don't know what our rate is at the moment. I know we've dropped it a little bit, but I don't have it specific. But we are increasing programming. One of the predominant ones is this program. So when they added my position and subsequently Ms. Escudero's position, we're a state-run agency, so we had to put in a budget request to the legislature. So the governor's office is aware of this program, the legislature is aware of this program, and they're increasing availability of expanding this program. The inmate buy-in it's off the charts. It starts out kind of clunky at first on a new unit, because everybody's trying to figure out if it's good, what is it, are we going to snitch them out because they're using stuff like that. They weren't sure. I'll open that shortly. Answer that in a moment, Obadiah. There's a hesitance with it, but as the program gets going, people start understanding and hearing about it, and then there's a lot of movement within DOC, inmates moving from one complex to the next, and they get to a new yard and they're asking, hey, where's the RSS program? And then I start getting emails from corrections officers, from sergeants, from CO3s asking, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming? And that's what fueled being able to have a position for Ms. Escudero to come in so we can help expand it a little bit faster. And staff buy-in, you'll see that on the video that we're going to play here momentarily. But it's from the top down. Our new director, when he started, happened to be touring a yard that I was on, and he just walks up to me and he goes, oh, hey, you're our RSS program manager. And I'm like, yes, I am. He goes, I love what you're doing. He'd been with the department for a week, and he knew who I was and what the program is about. So if that doesn't say what kind of buy-in is within DOC right now, I don't know what does. And it's just everybody wants it, and there is nothing but support for it at all 10 of our complexes, and even our private facilities that we contract with are chomping at the bit for us to get it in those facilities as well. So as far as my reception, Obadiah, I never felt out of place. People love the fact that I have a prison history and that I am now there trying to help people, to where I've even been invited to, it's CO3, so it's basically the case manager within prison as a corrections officer that's promoted. I've actually been invited to share at their training classes on multiple occasions to share my story and to share with them what they can do to be better for the inmates. So it's just my presence here, and then Holly's, and then a couple other key players within the department with a criminal history is changing the world for inmates here one day at a time.
Next slide, please. Romaldo, can we get next slide?
All right, so our rollout phases, we initially did one complex at a time. We have since expanded to where we are able to do multiple trainings at a time. So we've got across the state, we've got our counselors at 5 different prison complexes. So they are able to do trainings. I'm able to do trainings. Ms. Escudero will be able to do trainings here shortly, to where it's just going to keep constantly turning. Like, we're not having any setbacks as far as classes. We're able to get more trainings done as inmates are now to the point where they're releasing. So we're keeping it going. The supervision is the big one. So on the yards where there's a substance abuse counselor, they kind of act as a clinical supervisor. So they help them decompress on a clinical level. They're helping develop them develop their documentation on a more clinical level. We don't have enough counselors to go to every complex and every unit. So that's where myself and Ms. Escudero come in. We meet with the inmate RSSs on a regular basis. I get copies of their notes on a monthly basis, and I'm reviewing those, sending out recommendations. I go in and meet with them every quarter, more often if possible, depending on my training schedule. And we just want to make sure that it's set up as close to our community counterparts is. So they have the RSSs, they have their supervision, they have quarterly supervisions, they have ongoing trainings, they're able to facilitate the trainings. It's therapy and treatment within the prison setting to help ensure that the inmates that receive services and the inmates that receive the certification, when they go out into the community, it's supposed to mirror it as closely as possible. So next slide, please.
All right, so I think we've talked a little bit about this. We work with them about effectively advocating. Thanks to, so me and Danielle, in the past, before COVID, we were connecting with the peers here on the Tucson complex, checking in with them, seeing how things were going, discussing how effective advocacy works. Not just, but a lot of the times when we would bring these guys together, the folks that are doing the RSS, running the peer wellness programs, they themselves, we would bring them together from other yards, and they themselves would help each other, support each other about how they were advocating. It was pretty cool to watch them be empowered and collaborate with each other. So we're going to talk a little bit about employment certification or credentialing. So here in Arizona, Arizona has some core competencies that need to be met in order for somebody to become a peer credentialed, to be peer credentialed. So all the training agencies out here that do provide peer support training, they have to meet a certain standard. We wanted to do the exact same thing for these guys, these men and women in prison. We wanted them to be able to have the ability to work on these skills, to provide that training, but also know that they have the ability to exit those prison walls and get employment out here. And that's what that credentialing is. The credentialing that they receive in there is good, and they're credentialed here in the state of Arizona to be able to apply for positions as a peer support.
And we've created a verification letter. It's got the Department of Corrections letterhead on it. It's got our director's information on it, and it's a form letter stating that these inmates were certified on this date. Here is their certification number. Here's the curriculum that they've been running, and then our contact information at the bottom. So we want these individuals to not only be able to take their certification, but a copy of this letter and go out and apply for positions within the community. And a recent change we've had, which is another kind of groundbreaking thing, it's small, but it's huge for us. My division director gave me permission to keep track of our certified RSSs upon release, so that we're able to track program success beyond their release to make sure that they are able to get jobs in the community. We are working to establish a network of community agencies that we will be able to refer in the certified RSSs to for employment prior to release. And there's a kind of a big project we're working on that's going to encompass that. It's going to be several different departments within DOC working together to ensure that these employment referrals are going out and that our RSSs are able to, hopefully obtain employment prior to walking out the gate. So if they leave on a Monday, we want them to see their PO on Tuesday and start their job on Wednesday.
And we talk about during the training, some of the things that are expected of employers here in Arizona. A lot of times a part of that is fingerprint clearance, and we address that up front and let them know what that'll look like. And I know Jose and I have both had people contact us upon release, depending on the different community they're in, to ask who might be an employer in those areas, and we're willing to help them out when that time comes.
Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to skip this slide because we did it. So here are the numbers, right? There's 166 certified RSSs. That means that they've been credentialed to provide peer support services behind those walls and beyond. We have 4 that were released and that are working in the field. So that means out of those 166, 4 of them have paroled and are working in the field. The overall that are paroled from those credentialing is 11. But 4 of them have acquired jobs outside of that. There's 100 working across 28 units at 9 complexes. So inside the prison system, there's 100 recovery support specialists working in those prison units. We have over 900 enrollments. So those 900 enrollments is a peer wellness program. So those are the folks that are receiving services from the RSSs. Those are the ones that are attending those groups, that are meeting with them one-on-one. Out of those 900 enrollments, we have 503 graduates. Overall, 81 of those graduates have been released and 0 have recidivated. Now, 0 is a big number. So it's a big number to tout right now, and we're happy we're there. All I can say is that we'll hold on to that 0 for as long as we can, and we'll leave it at that. Do you want to add anything, Brian?
No, that pretty much covers it.
Okay. So next slide, please.
All right, so our future goals, we are currently working with Arizona Complete Health, establishing a community relation to where inmates that are receiving the RSS services inside prison are able to get a referral to an outside agency to continue services upon release. one of the biggest stumbling blocks for somebody walking out the gate is not knowing what they do next, not knowing where to go to receive services. So we want to be able to say they're going to Tucson, okay, here's a referral to this agency, and send that referral over, and 6 months prior to release, have conversations with whatever agency they're going to. And then at 5 months, at 4 months, at 3 months, at 2 months, at 1 month, at 2 weeks, 1 week, and then 3 days prior to release. So it's going to be a cascading thing to be able to ensure that the inmate going out knows exactly who they're going to see, what they're going to receive, and how they're going to do it. Employment referrals kind of goes hand in hand with that, as we're establishing relationships with all these community providers for outgoing inmates to receive services. We're going to be able to also hopefully have them receive our releasing RSSs as employees as well. The psych integration, we have our mental and physical health providers here in Department of Corrections are a contract-based system. So we are working to start a relationship with psych so that the RSSs would be able to go back and forth and advocate for the peers they're working with to psych. Right now, they can't even have a part in that, and we want to kind of develop that even further. AmeriCorps is another project we're working on, to where we want our releasing RSSs to sign up with AmeriCorps and then be able to go into our community correction facilities and facilitate groups in there to offenders that just released that are struggling with substance use. So we want to continue the cycle of the RSSs being able to provide services. And that's the community corrections integration as well, because there's talks about having our released RSSs working at our various parole offices. And then if that is successful, we want to extend that into adult probation as well.
So Brian, the question from Tiffany is what's the time frame on that recidivism?
All right, so the program started, we've been running the program now for just over 2 years now. The first graduates of the program were 1.5 years. So the 81 that have released have been going back for 1.5 years. Some of them got out 2 weeks ago. Some of them got out 1.5 years ago. So there's no, I'm not tracking it based on 0 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months quite yet. I don't have a large enough sample size. But as more inmates get out, we are going to definitely start tracking that a little bit more numbers focused. So we're able to break it down.
Can we get the next slide, please? All right, folks. So bear with us as Ramon is going to hit that link and put this video on. Basically, you guys are going to see folks here in the Tucson complex, some of the folks we work with, and we'll let them speak for themselves.
There's no audio.
All right, bear with us. We'll try to get it fixed real quick.
If you move the cursor up to view options and click on that, you will see some dots, and click on that, and then you can share audio. I've had this problem before when I've done Zoom audio.
Romualdo, did you hear that? Because that's not on our end. We don't have that capability.
Say again? Say again?
Hang on, Ramal. There I go. I'm off mute. I had this problem. I moved the cursor to the top. I had this problem. I moved the cursor to the top. And then click on the dots, and you'll see a share audio at the drop down, and then click on share audio at the drop down, and then click on share audio.
I'll say share audio.
You got to move the cursor to the top. You got to move the cursor to the top.
So it allows inmates to be able to open up and reach the level of vulnerability that's necessary.
Absolutely, be vulnerable, right? But
You need to restart
I
it.
never thought of that as a cost. I never thought of that as being valuable. Because everybody knows values.
Can you please start over?
Value to
Please start over.
Yes, please, everybody mute.
I just have been doing what I needed to do to recover my life. We chase 500 different problems, and really the root of the problem stems from addiction.
It's just living on autopilot. Well, this is what I've always done. This is what I've always seen other people do.
I know for me, when I got out the last time, I felt like I had this huge sticker on my forehead that said prison.
When I was younger, I went through the system. I went to juvenile hall, I went to county jail. I eventually ended up in the prison system.
So I think for anyone who struggles with substance abuse, who struggles with emotional issues, with mental health issues, you're always looking for a reason not to do the work, right?
It's hard sometimes, and I share the training. If you're getting into this for the fame and glory, you're entering the wrong career. But helping one person, because the day in and day out of it can be very hard. You don't see that. You see the people that are coming back.
There's a lot of people that want to make changes, but they don't know where to begin.
It's 100 degrees. I'm in prison. I hate this place.
By a peer helping another peer, they're open to another inmate really sharing their stories, and that provides hope.
Your feelings towards it, because remember, as women, we feel more with our heart and our stomach than with our head. We're more in here. What an RSS does is it gets people to change their behavior, their thought patterns, their way of living, but in a way that they retain the power, that it's their idea.
So to come into group with someone who you know understands your experience and who's been through what you've been through.
So bad decisions, most bad decisions we don't make intentionally, right?
That way they know that we've been through it, and we can understand, be on the same page with them.
So peers tend to listen to other peers. They trust them more than they trust staff. So they're willing to open up, allow themselves to be a little bit more vulnerable.
If you're not willing to be vulnerable in recovery, then you don't stand a chance. So it allows inmates to be able to open up and reach the level of vulnerability that's necessary to get to their core issues.
Absolutely, be vulnerable, right? But I never thought of that as a quality. I never thought of that as being valuable, encompassing what everybody knows is right and wrong. But sometimes my values to go against that.
This is such a value to reducing recidivism.
That's the base of what makes peer support so effective. We know it does. We have all kinds of data to show that it's effective.
They just have so much more confidence in themselves where other inmates see it. And they say, hey, like, what are those guys? What do they got going on? I want some of that.
I've literally heard people say, I want what you have. They gravitate towards that. They're very drawn. People are like, I want to be in your group. I want to be around you. I want that energy.
Arizona has this unique system where we get the ability to work within like the behavioral health system. The credentialing they get here in Arizona is approved through the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, which is our state Medicaid payer.
This is incredibly unique because they actually have a recovery support specialist license so that the transition to the community and being able to have a profession helping others also helps them in their recovery.
So I need to stop and reframe my thinking so that I don't have an action that is harmful.
Having that certification in here, it opens a door in here to your future.
And so my idea of recovery had changed this through the training, because for recovery for me meant sobriety.
Sobriety is not the goal. It's a life worth being sober for.
Going through the training, it was more inclusive. It included everybody. It doesn't matter if you're making a change with sobriety, or making a change with your anger issues, or making a change with the way you eat.
Teaching that first class, everything just clicked into place because I'm relaying the message to myself as much as I'm relaying it to them.
These guys that leave now will have licenses, certifications to actually be employed by community service providers.
It's really good on-the-job training, and it gives you that sense of hope. Like, there is a future for me. There is a career, and it's not just a 9-to-5 paycheck to paycheck. It's something that I'm passionate about, and it gives me a sense of purpose. I think people in general having meaning and purpose in their life makes a world of difference.
It gave me a sense of purpose to step into another role that we call as Native Americans medicine. But once I became in recovery, I found my real values. Giving my life was more important.
It's going to open so many doors. I'm not going to go out there and like, oh my goodness, where am I going to find a job, you know?
Not many people get to go to work and want to go to work every day and feel like they're doing something good with, with their life. I'm like supremely grateful because like I feel like I found my calling. Like this is what I want to do. This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
We're helping them while they're incarcerated, but then also we're still giving back to the community.
They're going to be very valuable parts because they know what's happening here and what's bringing people back.
So they're not just getting out and getting a job, but they really are setting themselves up to have a good career. With you and your
The first time we had a meeting with her after this program started, the first thing she said to us was, I'm going to trust you guys until you give me a reason not to.
On the yard, when something's going on, we've actually had a couple that are like, get an RSS, go RSS that.
And that's being used a lot. Now the staff is using it, and it's amazing to be a part of it. It fulfills my spirit.
And we're blown away because wardens just don't talk like that. Wardens don't trust inmates.
For the guys that are instructing the classes, one of the greatest things that they're getting out of it is giving back. And once they realize, oh, helping others helps me to, it almost holds them to their sobriety because they don't want to be hypocrites.
Seeing what they call selfless service or service to others has helped me go to another level of understanding. It's not just about me anymore.
And it's super cool because inmates typically are smart enough to do the right things when someone's watching, but integrity is about what you do when no one's watching. And so we wrote up a contract, we all signed it, and we sent it to Deputy Warden Martinez.
Nobody asked them to do it. They wrote a contract stating that they are committed to it and they wouldn't fail. So I thought that was very special.
If we were going to have a warden who was willing to let us do something that our population and our society desperately needed, then we couldn't mess it up.
The difference here was that we talked about ahead of time the barriers that happened in other states and how, if and when they happened here, how we would address them.
And the specialization training that they have in terms of some mental health stuff is priceless in terms of the lives saved and situations where possibly there could have been a bad ending.
We had administration and the counseling side of DOC who was completely on board and wanted this to work. And then you had the security side who didn't have any faith in it whatsoever.
2 of the RSSs have actually been called when there was a crisis.
A guy on yard 1 told his control room officer, I'm thinking about killing myself and I want to talk to an RSS.
And we had an officer call from 1 yard to get an RSS off yard 4.
And then I told security officer, like, look, this is what he's saying, these are the thoughts he's been having. He's decided that it's best for him to go on a suicide watch.
And it literally solved a crisis.
Security officers, even security officers on different shifts, were coming to me saying, hey, that was a really good thing that you did.
If I wasn't an RSS, nobody would even know my name. But now that I am an RSS, all the cops know who I am. And it let me become a human being once again. And this is all these inmates really looking for, is to become a human being again, you know.
I'm constantly reminded by what I'm doing to make sure that I'm doing the right things, because I saw how hard it was for the security staff to put that trust in me.
They're changing the culture within the communities that they live in, and that's really important.
This is my community, this is where I live, it's not where I want to be, but as long as I'm here, I'm going to play a part in making it better.
Because I'm not doing this for the paycheck. I'm doing it because I genuinely don't want you to come back to prison.
Seeing that person just change the whole life perspective, right in the blink of your eyes, and watching that person go from darkness to light. And once other people see that, that's when they want to get involved. It's a beautiful thing to see.
It just feels really good in the way that it gives me meaning and purpose. Even if I don't see the change, I mean, it feels really good when I get to see somebody make that change.
Even though they need the clinical support, what they do is just invaluable.
It's so humbling when people are like, thank you for not judging me. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for loving me when I didn't love myself. Thank you for showing me that I can be different, that I'm worth it.
One of our biggest resources that we have is inmates. And so why don't we use the inmates to help fight the problems that we're facing?
They're working alongside staff, they're working on the recovery, and they're helping other people that live with them get better. I think that's pretty cool.
Recovery support specialist training, it is growing so large in the United States. It is a movement, and I'm just so grateful to be involved in something that I believe in.
And you know how you can teach somebody something and you become that person you want to be? This program makes people want to be better.
I won't allow you to judge me based on the worst thing I've ever done. You may do that once, but I'm going to prove to you every day that that was a mistake I made. That's not who I am. And I choose to wake up every day and decide that I'm going to be better than the man I was yesterday. I hope to be much better than I am today 10 years from now. So, and if I can get other guys around me to see life that way too, then life's golden.
Thank you, Romualdo. So it looks like we got about 2 minutes left. Our contact information's up there. There was a couple of chat questions that came through, as well as I'm sure some folks have some follow-up questions. If we don't get an opportunity to answer your questions, feel free to reach out to us, and I'm sure we'll respond.
And we're copying the chat, so any email address that's included in there, I'll make sure we get the information you're requesting out as quickly as possible. And feel free to take a picture or screenshot that, whatever. I have my work phone with me all the time, and I don't care if you have a question that pops into your head at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, I'll answer it. So, so thank you everyone for attending. I love to see all the attention that this is getting, and if you guys want to contact the Department of Corrections in your state and have them reach out once Corona kind of lets loose, I already have permission from my central office to bring people in to see firsthand and meet the inmates and see the training and just, network. We want to change the culture across the country, not just across the state. So